Okay, so we have hit the Handmaid's Tale Season 3, Episode 12, Sacrifice. I'm going to split this review up into two parts. Again, it's an episode split into two stories. I'm going to start this time with the Waterford side of the story, and then I'll finish off with June's. So after the big reveal last week that Serena was actually playing Fred, and that they were both captured by Americans, I feel from that momentum, the show dragged a bit here because it actually took 13 minutes to get to their story. And also in a shorter episode, clocking in around 47 minutes, we really didn't get much time with that side. And that's frustrating because we're hitting the second to last episode of the season here, and the finale's next week. So you see where Fred and Serena are actually held in custody. It's actually really nice. And this is a good touch by the show because I think it's kind of making a statement about how elitist, rich, and white-collar crime isn't what we always imagine, where it's like, oh, someone's going to prison. And like June references later on about the orange jumpsuits, that we just imagine these criminals getting just desserts here and being in an orange jumpsuit in a dirty prison. Not the case. I mean, the setup that Fred's in is nicer than my apartment. If I have to be put there for life, I'm fine with it. So Serena comes rushing in, and she tells Fred, don't give them anything you can use in trial. They could put you in prison for life. And Fred's like, I won't let anything happen to you. And then Serena says, you have to stop worrying about me. You have to save yourself. I'll be fine. So Fred connects the dots there. This is soul crushing to him. He realizes she's betrayed him, and he's like, what have you done? Puts his hand on her throat. If they were in Gilead, he probably would have killed her in that moment. And he's like, it's always been about you, what you need. But Serena's like, no, she needs me. My daughter needs me. So Fred's actually making a good point there about Serena, and it is exactly her character. I've said this before, but Serena justifies her obsessive behavior to what she wants, which is being a mom of Nicole, and uses it to justify everything else. But she delusionally thinks that Nicole needs her. That's the problem. That's a lie to herself, which is not the case. It's just an excuse for her to get what she actually wants. And a comment to last week's episode, a lot of people were debating if Fred was actually converted to Serena's side. I really do think he was still. I think he flipped. I think he was ready to leave Gilead behind in a sense. So this stings for him even more. But now we see here when they throw in Moira and Luke in this situation, I was a little frustrated that we didn't get a scene of their initial reaction to Fred and Serena being kidnapped and explaining why they completely have to agree to bring Nicole to them again. And the way they explained this was Luke's quick line to Moira saying, it's part of the deal, all right? It will be worth to see them there. Is that really the reason? Like, I don't know if that's super convincing that they both would just be down with that. So that was a little weak for me. So we see now Serena again in normal clothes, but in this shot, she's thinking about putting her hair up like she always did as a wife, but then she puts it down. This episode showed really well was how hard it is for Serena to just go back and try to be any sense of normal and not be a wife anymore. It's always in her. So Mark Tuello comes in here, explains to Serena she's been detained until we finish the process with the commander. And he's like, he's not your concern anymore. But she's like, well, he's my husband. So Serena does still obviously care about Fred's well-being in a sense, and that's why she told him to not give them too much in trial. She knew it was necessary to get Nicole back, but I don't think she wants the worst to happen to him. And what I'm also sensing with Serena here is this sexual tension between her and Mark Tuello, and they kind of set this up from this moment on, and it actually adds a lot of mystery to Tuello as well, what his intentions really are. Is he trustworthy? Is he going to keep his word to Serena? Is he trustworthy for the American cause? Or does he have another game he's playing? There's a lot of stuff they throw in here to kind of make him more complicated. So I thought it was hysterical. They have the social services lady come into the room when Moira brings Nicole in, which was great, and that she only has an hour with Nicole. Moira is always a scene stealer. Samira Wiley kills it in this role. I love seeing her. I wish to God there was more of her, and I'm actually really disappointed this is kind of all we got in this episode. It was so good, and you just wanted more. But she's like, I'm June's friend, and she corrects Serena saying it's June's daughter, not Nicole. And Moira's like, who are you really? You are still the same woman who held my friend down so your husband could rape her. And I love she says this, and Mark Tuello's like, that's uncalled for, and she's like, F you. What a boss moment for Moira here. And she explains he raped her at the whorehouse. So she's just hitting Serena with all the truths here. And I really love they put this line over Moira to say, because You constantly see people debate Serena, and at this point, again, she's so irredeemable, and I think we always forget what she's actually done. I think even the Handmaid's Tale Instagram account's forgotten, where last week they posted a photo of like, love her or hate her, here's Serena, but to love someone who has helped with a rape is kind of tough in my eyes. I don't think Serena is a victim at all. I don't believe in that argument. And Moira just calls her a gender traitor here, and shout out to Yvonne in this episode in particular. Always got to give credit to actors when they're really good at reacting, which is a huge part of acting, and her facial expressions were spot on here, showing so much different thoughts and emotions and just with no lines. So really well done. So you see when Serena picks up Nicole, I love that they've kept this social services woman out of focus in the frame. It's just blurry. It's just showing you Serena's mindset of her and that she's trying to ignore it, doesn't even look back at her. And she's just saying to her, it's just a little stranger anxiety. And then Serena says to Nicole, it's your mommy. And the social service lady's like, nah, you shouldn't say that. You'll confuse her. I mean, this is when Serena, it's like, what are you doing here? What was your end game anyway? You think you were just going to get Nicole back and it was all going to be good? Come on now. So then we see now Mark and Fred in the room together. And Mark's explaining to Fred, like, look, you're a powerful man. People want to hear from you. Have your chance to explain Gilead. And then he informs him that Luke is here for discussion, so Fred sees to him that Tuello is just trying to manipulate him. But an interesting line here is when Tuello says, it's your call about bringing Luke in or not. I don't know if that was just a mind trick here, if he was going to bring him in no matter what anyway, but that's interesting to me. Because how would have that went down if Fred was like, no, and then Tuello was like, Luke, you gotta stay back even though you gave us your kid for an hour. And I'm actually shocked that Fred even let Luke in the room, to be honest. And you see how he tells Luke, can I offer you tea or bourbon? They've been very accommodating. Now again, this is their setup now, but maybe this is all just kind of an act to rope Fred in and Serena to interrogate them more and to kind of ease into them. I'm hoping that's what Tuello's doing, or this could just be the reality of the situation. I mean, really, who can you trust anywhere? But you see Luke's like, we grew up the same type of man of education, a man of faith. And he's like, yet you destroy lives. And you see that Fred says, I save lives. And it's kind of mirroring what Lawrence said to June earlier in the season, where he's kind of like, at least I back what I say and take action, where he calls Luke out for not really doing anything. I think this is also a very powerful political statement by this show. I think it's just showing that the far right are aggressive. They take action to what they're saying, where sometimes the left stalls their feet and they say good things, but they pause. They get cold feet. I think that's been a theme always underlying here in this show. And Fred says some really just villainous stuff here, saying how June's not the same person anymore. Gilead's changed her. I changed her. And then Luke gets this nice punch in, but then it's taken out. But is this enough? At this point in season 3, the episode before the finale, we're getting Moira yelling at Serena, saying some great stuff we want to hear, and then we get one punch from Luke to Fred. But it also feels like they're, again, just dipping our toes in the pool of the stuff we want to happen, and then they pull it back out. And to me, this ultimately was still disappointing. I think if this was, again, earlier in the season, fine, or if we didn't have just one episode left, but I really did expect more to happen here. We've put in a lot of hours this season, and this doesn't feel quite like a payoff. And I know there's one more episode to go, but I have a feeling they're really leaning in towards, obviously, the kid escape. So now we see Tuello brings pizza into Serena, but see, Tuello gives Serena this paper and says he wants her thoughts on media bias towards religion. And you're really wondering, is he just, again, giving her this bait to hook her in and then eventually just bring her down as well? And just kissing up to her for that reason? Or is there some other intentions there? I mean, if it is something else where he kind of has a thing for her, Serena's on board, because at the end of that shot, the way she was smiling at him, he's hitting all the right notes. Especially because Fred can never do that, where he stopped her from writing and this guy's encouraging it. But that is all you get with this Waterford storyline here in this episode. And I just have this feeling where that's it. Like, come on. It's like, where even is Emily? Where has she been? What is with these Canada stories? They cannot delve into it. It's always just stays on this like outer surface. Like I've said in a previous review, they need to hire a political writer from a show, again, like House of Cards, homeland, something, because I feel like the show is afraid to jump into more political-esque writing in that sphere of like this New America and Canada and Gilead. They're not delving into that enough, and they always stray away from it. And I feel like this episode had a huge opportunity to do that, and they just didn't. And I think now, from seeing most of the season play out, it's just a thing about this show now. If your character gets sent to Canada, first it was Moira season 2, now it was Emily here, it's where your character goes to just die and not get screen time. And it sucks because Emily and Moira are some of the strongest characters. And that's another complaint I have, where this episode shows it all, where we're already going to June's story now, and she's 3/4 of this episode. But she's also 3/4 of this season. Where the past 2 seasons, you had the ball spread out a little more. It's too much June's story. And yes, she's a main character, but it's getting pretty tiresome. You have such other great opportunities in world building here, and I feel like they're not taking advantage of that. And that's that weird feeling of this season where it's like, man, we're hitting 12 episodes now, but I feel like nothing's really grown. It's all kind of just stayed almost on like 2 or 3 sets here. Why? And that changed a bit when we had the DC episode. That was 1 episode. So I wanted more of that too. And I don't know. It just feels almost even cheap in a way with location base and getting all these scenes with June in the Lawrence house. It's almost too much. But that's like season whole complaints. Let's back to this 1 episode in particular with June's story. It opens up with her with the gun, some intense ambient music playing here, and she's got a little narration about hearing the van outside. You hear the doors close and just explaining when the eyes come and these bad people of Gilead. And she's got her gun to the door, but it's not a guard, it's Eleanor. It's a little foreshadowing here, because eventually, by the end of this episode, to June, Eleanor would be the danger. And that's also foreshadowing that she would be the one to have part in killing her. So you see Beth now is praising June downstairs. And June's a little paranoid at first, like, what are you talking about? Thinking maybe she knows about the Winslow thing, but she's referring to Billy. And that's like, great job convincing Billy the bartender. And he's in with the cargo plane and says the flight will be a week from today. And what I liked was a nice touch where Beth kind of grabs June's face, is looking at the bruise. And for Beth, this is obviously very upsetting, but for June, she knows it's kind of actually a battle scar, something she's proud of. It's like, hey, I killed this man when this happened. So I think that reminds her of it. So that was kind of a cool twist. So we see now June actually takes a trace from the Marthas, like, let me bring it into the room, because Commander Lawrence is with Commander Putnam and the generic commander, who is just a cartoon villain. So Commander Putnam's like, Canada is holding them, referring to the Waterfords, but America is behind this. And the Martha referenced before that one of the commanders wants to launch an attack, I'm assuming Putnam. But Lawrence is like, oh, now that those 2 commanders are out of the picture, now you come to me. And references his higher ranking privileges being taken away, his clearance to go through certain areas. And they're like, oh, it was just politics. We'll give them back to you. Because they're like, we need a voice of reason. And they leave, and Lawrence says to June, you're off the hook. You're off the wall for now. Lucky for you, they think Winslow is missing. So that's why it's huge they burned his body. If his body was anywhere found, oh boy, it'd be bad. Now they can't confirm he's dead. And they think that he got taken like the Waterfords did. And then Lawrence informs June that the Waterfords have been taken into custody. I'm so happy June got to hear this. This is such a happy moment for her and a win. And he says they're facing trial as war criminals. And he's like, I guess they didn't bring 52 kids with them. So obviously that's one of Lawrence's fears, we know, that he'll become a war criminal. So it's a nice line there. And he has a great line where he's like, cheer up. Fred and Serena are toast, and you just got away with murder. And I love this happy cry June does here. It's such a nice moment for her. It's so rare. But what was good about this episode, and it started here, was just callbacks to season 1 plot lines. And her getting this justice now of Serena and Fred. That goes since the beginning of this show, so I love that. And we'll get into that with Rita as well. So in Loaves and Fishes, June runs into Alma here. She's like, it's happening a week from today. And she's like, Martha's are bringing the kids to the Lawrence's house after dark, and he'll bring them to the plane. But Alma's reaction worries me here, because she mentions that her Martha is a B word, and that could be difficult. And then June brings up the kid again, and that scares me, because it shows when they keep mentioning parts of that, They're kind of setting up a closure here for Alma, and I hope to God she doesn't die. But I'm afraid that might happen, especially how worried she is after that convo. I just got that vibe in my stomach that she might save her kid and die in the process, and I hope to God it doesn't happen. I love Alma, and I'm biased because I just interviewed her last week. Check that interview out. I'll link it after this video. It's also in the info. But I have that dark feeling. I hope it doesn't happen. But then we get this really nice moment with Rita and June here. And back to that theme about the prison I was talking about with June saying, I can't stop imagining them in orange jumpsuits. What we kind of all imagined last episode and where they were going. But again, this show did a nice job of being realistic about it. And Rita mentions to June that she was being questioned by the eyes. And that she just told him the truth. And that Serena was kind of nice at the end there. And June nails it here about Serena where she's like, she is only nice when she's up to something. So true. And there's this great moment where Rita's like, I want in now on this operation. And she's like, tell me you thought of this. You're such a boss now. And I love Lizzie's reaction here with a little smirk and her eye movement. That was great. And this was such a touching moment that Rita grabbed her hand. It was true friendship here going back since season 1. Rita's seen everything June's been through and is just praising her for how she has been resilient and what she's doing now. It really was beautiful, and it just shows you the love of friendship and of two women together and strength. And she says, I'm proud of you, which was just awesome. And again, a nice connection to a story that's been going since season 1. I always appreciate that. Okay, so this is where it starts getting interesting here with June because she sees Eleanor in the house, and Eleanor is really not looking well at this point. And now they got to go into the room where Miss Winslow is with Mrs. Putnam. And they're praying for Commander Winslow's safety and his return. So June and Commander Lawrence know it's poker face time. However, Eleanor does not get that. And it starts with Miss Winslow saying she's so afraid for her children. And Eleanor's like, your children? And I love how it shows a shot of Commander Lawrence grabbing her shoulder and June just starting to worry right away. And I feel like we've all been here when you have a kind of like a group secret in life and someone's let in on it, but they're just the idiot who just starts mouthing it off to people and you're like, oh my God, you're gonna mess this all up. And this just shows the huge grave mistake that Commander Lawrence made in telling Eleanor about any of this. And Miss Winslow's like, I can't be a woman alone with 6 kids. They'll take them away from me. And Eleanor's like, we can take them with us. We can save them. Oh my God, I was screaming at this point. This was so tense, and you could just feel it in June's face where she was just like, this is not happening right now. This woman is not going to mess up everything I've worked so hard on. This one leak here. And Eleanor's like, don't we have room? And Commander Lawrence is just trying to cover this up where he's like, oh, room here, of course, yeah. And I love he's like, mi casa es su casa. That was great. Commander Lawrence always has those humorous little lines. And just the way June looks at her at the end of this scene, she knows right away this is a huge problem. Again, she didn't come this far for this one person to mess it all up. So we see Lawrence now. He's on the phone. He's arguing with someone about them closing the border. And he's like, June, we got to move this flight plan up. A week is too long. But then June sees Eleanor, and Eleanor's going to just randomly get some kids to save. And this is where just, again, an amazing scene of acting by all 3 of them here. Just the way Bradley Whitford shows in his face, too, that he knows who Eleanor is. He's shameful about what's happening, but he still loves her and doesn't want June too hard on her. And then June just laying it down here like, hey, you got to stop Eleanor. And she's like, you can't say anything. You understand. I really love the realism of this whole conflict and that this would be something that would probably actually happen with someone in Eleanor's state of mind at this point. And it's so brutal seeing her like this. Again, she doesn't have her meds. And a great line written here was Lawrence going to her, all you need to do is think about our life when we're out of this place. And she's like, our life? So one, it seems like she wasn't planning on staying with him. And he's like, we'll leave this all behind. And she's like, can we really do that? So this is a theme you see in a lot of shows, and it really works well for this show in particular. And it goes back to Serena in this episode with her kind of always being a wife. She can't adjust. Same with what I was saying about June when she was in Jezebel's last episode with the red lipstick, the red bottom of her heels, just always a handmaid is in there. And with their guilt to the Lawrences and that they can't just go back from this, how is that even possible? And that line really scared me with Eleanor because that felt in my gut hearing that like, oh no, she's ready to just leave it all behind in the sense of suicide. And then we see June goes upstairs to bring Eleanor food, and we see Eleanor has overdosed on purpose. And Elisabeth Moss plays this perfectly when June's like running, and her initial reaction is to go get help. You know, because she's still alive, Eleanor. She sees what's happened, but she stops. For anyone who's watched Breaking Bad, you know exactly what this is mirroring. That Walter White moment that was very similar to this. It also reminds me of Walking Dead with Look at the Flowers. Dark times, and you're facing dark realities, and your options of, oh, what if I don't let this person live? And how much that will help you. What do you do here? It's someone who is very mentally ill at this point. She has none of the meds she needs. She clearly sounds like someone who's given up. And she's also not a total victim in this world of Gilead. She was also there when it was going down, which is the difference between her and Off Matthew in my eyes, where I could see a little more sense of not having as much sympathy for an Eleanor as you would an Off Matthew. That's a whole thing. You can go down a rabbit hole debate of that, but that's just my opinion. Again, because Off Matthew is a true victim to me. She's a handmaid, where Eleanor still has more dirt. These are all just things I'm talking about because it probably is all going through June's head. But June loves Eleanor here. I mean, Eleanor was great at the end here, and she kisses her. That was a big moment there. And June's thinking, is this a hazard to me keeping this ill woman alive? Like I said, like with the Look at the Flowers thing, where you're in these worlds that are almost like post-apocalyptic, and these things change, and these dark decisions have to be made. Oh, can this person with no meds even exist in a life where we can all get done what needs to be done? Or is it a hazard? It's such a touchy, crazy topic it's just hitting on and brings up. But she knows this could be her chance to make sure she saves a bunch of kids. And the sacrifice being Eleanor. Title of the episode. I really, really want to see with the comments this week is debate. What would you have done if you were June in that situation? Can you justify it? Did she do the right thing? Or is it not? I would really love that debate. I think this is a very gray one. I could see both sides. But June smartly puts the tray back in front of the door and reverses this like this never happened, and just walks and lays in her bed. But it's clearly already starting to eat at her conscience with her staying up all night. And it was a nice little touch there with the lighting, and then going to day, and then half her face is in the sun and half is in the dark. Kind of where June's at as a character. And I feel for June though, because she constantly is forced to make decisions like this. This is the world she's in, and she's a complicated character. I like how they did the sound of the Martha finding her in the background. And a really great scene was now June facing Commander Lawrence face to face, and man, Elisabeth Moss just killed it here. Like hiding this guilt and super poker face time now. And he gives her good news that the border was kept open, and that there was sympathy towards him because of his loss. So I think this kind of eases June's thoughts about her decision a little bit, because then she's like, okay, this really is helping the situation that this happened. And Commander Lawrence was like, she was so fragile, I shouldn't have let her go to her room. And June's like, you cannot blame yourself. And he's like, I could have checked her. And she's like, I could have checked her, which she did, and she didn't do anything. I gotta say, this is a total Emmy-worthy scene for the two of them. Bradley Whitford as well. So much is just happening in the air here that's just displayed through emotions, feelings, movements, everything. And that seed, I think, was planted in Lawrence's head right here when she said, I could have checked too. That, wait a minute, did you do something, June? And you see June's just holding back these tears, and then when he leaves the room, she's like taking this like huge sigh of relief at how hard that actually was to just do what she did. So here we are at Eleanor's funeral to close the episode out. Hey, there's that black handmaid outfit I always dug from last season. I haven't seen it in a while. June's wearing it. They wear it when they're mourning. And this was a really just powerful scene with June going up to Commander Lawrence here, and she puts her hands in solidarity with the way he is. But that look he gives her, that scared the living hell out of me. And June's just looking back at him, trying not to break. This is one of the toughest things she's ever had to do. And man, is Commander Lawrence just very suspicious now. So I wonder what kind of problems this will cause. I love that score they had at the end here. Classic Handmaids vibe, dark. And then you see she looks up. We end again with Angry Eyes June. A lot of people have been complaining about that, but I think it worked in particular for this episode, even though it's been overdone, because she is so focused on that goal now. This is it. So this episode's tough for me to rate because I really liked it as a standalone episode. But in the realm of this season, it's frustrating because I thought more would happen here. especially before finale. And I think it just got annoying because then you just realized as this episode went along that, okay, they've set out that this rescuing kids story is the end of this season. That's what's really keeping everything afloat, and that's how they'll finish it. But it's also distraction in a way from not addressing things that have been overdue to kind of resolve. And I really hope that they resolve kind of the Waterfords here. I think their story's kind of coming to an end, and I thought that would progress more to that in this episode, but it didn't. And this is me being wishy-washy, but I do wish maybe something happened with Moira where she even tried to kill Serena, something. Like, what else are they going to do with the Waterfords at this point? I mean, yeah, they're going to use them in this trial and stuff, but I think it's time to start moving on now. And this still felt like it was dragging its feet, which is so frustrating. So many episodes this season and a lot of just tiptoeing, and you just realize, man, we only got one episode left and it's a long break and not a lot's happened. But yeah, last episode we got these two big wins, but it didn't really keep that momentum. It kind of just tiptoed, but I don't know. I'm so conflicted about it, but this episode was good. It was strong writing. It was thematically brilliant. Really great acting all around. I think June's parts were the best. The Waterford thing was more of a letdown to me. And same thing with Luke, Moira. My concerns about Canada, still 2 seasons now, has just not been good. Again, these characters go to die there. And that feeling of this season being not confident. It's afraid to just jump into the deep end. It's kind of staying in just a comfort zone. It's staying where the show knows it wants to be, but it's not spreading out. I can already say, even if the finale is amazing, this is the worst season of the 3. It's still good, but it's not near season 2 or 1. But this episode, I'm going to give overall a 9. I like the whole story they got going on with Eleanor here. Written really well. Great acting all around. And really good score in this one in particular. Let me know what you thought of this episode down below. And please let me know again, if you were in June's situation in this episode, what would you have done? Would you have kept Eleanor alive? Or would you have just let her go? And please check out my interview I did with Nina Kiri, who plays Alma. I did it last week. It's linked right here. I think you'll love it. She goes all into her character, and she gives a bunch of thoughts about stuff that's happened in season 3, so you don't want to miss it. And please subscribe. I'm trying to hit 10,000 subscribers. I'm almost there. It's a big goal for me, so I appreciate every single one of you. Please don't forget that. And please follow me at SteveVarley1 on Twitter and Instagram for more of me. Praise be, and I'll see you for the big finale.